Okay, today's going to be really fun. We're just going to play with some bent arm entries to handstand. Now, the easiest variation is going to be some sort of crow up to handstand, or you could do a little bit of a hop or a jump to get up. Basically, with the bent arm position, it makes it a little bit easier to get the hip on top so you can float the feet. So a lot of people get stuck here. But if I bend my arms, it pulls the hip on top of the hands. Notice the hip crease has gone on. Now I can lift the feet. From there, I can like flick the body to go up. That makes it much easier. And I'm also doing it on grass, so I've got a lot of room to play with. You ideally need some sort of freestanding handstand, or at least to be able to control and exit, because you might come up quite fast. So knowing how to bail, knowing how to cartwheel out is really important. But grass is going to make that fun, and it's a skill that you definitely should have if you're starting to learn freestanding handstand, entries to handstand, and things like that. So the bent arm position itself is really useful in catching, rebalancing. Notice how much room I have for error if I bend the arms and move it around. It's like another point at which I can control, and because it's so close to the floor, it's very, very useful. And it's very, very useful for pulling us up to handstand, for that press handstand like I was just showing. You might have a nice, clean, straight arm press handstand, but on a bad day, when your flexibility is not so good, your strength is slightly off, or your balance is slightly off, that might disappear, or it might not look as nice. Having a bent arm option allows you to pull that hip on top at any point. So if I'm not getting my straight arm press, I can just add the option of a bent arm, even if it's just a little bit, and that allows me to get up. Yes, it's a bit uglier, but it does ensure that you're always going to get up to handstand. So bending the arms pulls the hip up fast or over fast. Now we can use that speed to take us over towards overbalance, and if we push out at the right time, that's what's going to fire you up to handstand. So that crow-like position is really good for this, because we've got the seesaw action, head and shoulders come down, hips come up, and then I can throw myself over. Now I was putting the foot to the pedal there, foot to the pedal, foot to the metal, you know what I mean? Put my foot too much on the gas, which purposely took me over to get that across. Now, if we can get the timing correct at the right moment, we can either push straight up to catch the handstand, or we can just back off. So I can pause there. See, I've paused. Now I just push up to my handstand, and that's a way of controlling that speed when we get up. So backing it off just enough so you're catching that point where the arms are still bent, and then pushing out is going to give you a little bit more consistency in your catch. Now, what are our options? We've got crow to handstand. With crow to handstand, we can play around with the depth. So look how much my arms are bent, and I can push up from there to handstand, or I can bend the arms all the way down here, which is close to like handstand push-up range, and then go up from there. Pros and cons. The second one's obviously good if you are working towards handstand push-up, or just want to get a bit more volume in training in that more bent arm position. But the shorter one, or the lower one, the less bend, is going to get you up to handstand in like more of an efficient way, as long as you can get the position right. So that position right in terms of the hip is really important. So the hip crease on top of the heel of the palm, there is the main thing that's going to lift the feet or not lift the feet, make it efficient or not make it efficient. So if I leave it behind this way and try to lift everything up, so if I'm here and now try to lift, this is way harder. But a lot of people will do that because they don't want to back splatter. But if you can get used to taking that hip just a little bit higher and start to have that falling over the top, it's going to be much easier to get up. So that crow to handstand is one option. The other one is a bent arm press handstand, where we're trying to make it as close to the straight arm version as we can. So if you're aiming to get up here, but you can't get up there, just go to that point, and a very small bend is probably enough to get you up if you're that close to it, if you're on the verge of it. And then what I recommend you do is, if you are working towards the straight arm press handstand, is use a slight bend on the way up, have them dead straight on the way back down. So then we've got bent arm press handstand, as close to the straight arm as we can. We have crow to handstand at different depths. And then we probably have the hardest option from a strength point of view, which is starting to lower the position, both in the hips and the legs. And we can go all the way to like a bent arm planche up to handstand. So this here, then push up to handstand. I'm going to knock my cap off. So that's seen as being much harder, especially if you go into a straight position. I've done like a straddle froggy position. but everything's flatter and then it's pushing it up like so. That's really good if you are going towards 90-degree handstand push-ups. It's very simple to regress and progress depending on how low the hip is. So normally the lower the hip, the harder it's going to be, and how extended the body is. Straight position's the hardest, and then we've got frog, straddle, froggy straddle, somewhere in between, more like advanced tuck, and then a tuck position. Now, if you're in a tuck position, it's pretty tricky to get that on the floor because there's not space. But let's see if we can run through those now. I'm going to start with the easier version. Once we've turned the hat around so we don't have that cap, I need to take the head nice and close to the floor. So the easier version is going to have a higher hip position, and I need to be in that higher hip position anyway to create the space because I'm going to be more in a tuck, so like that. And then from there, go up to handstand. Now that's relatively easy compared to the more open versions. And then as we start to open out, let's go a bit more froggy now. So the froggy positions, we take the leg out to the side, allows my hip to come lower, but also starts to extend the legs, meaning the head and shoulders need to go a little bit further forwards. So a bit more like this. Grass going up my nose. Okay, now next let's try a straddle position. Now the straddle position is going to be quite different, depends on how much pike you have in the hip. So when we go out to a straddle, if we pike like this, it's going to raise the hips up higher, making it easier. Like a clean straddle is seen as having a fully open hip, so not pike like this, but open this way. Now that does make it very similar to the straight position in terms of lever arms. So an open hip straddle position isn't that much different than the straight. So going somewhere in between is a cool way of doing it. You just got to be careful that the hip doesn't fold too much. Now I'm trying to work out the best hand position here because I've got some ups and downs on the grass. Let's try there. So I'm going to talk less until I get up to the easier part of this. So more straddle, bent arm, elbows in. Yeah. Not so good. I got a bit stuck as I went into that. So I lost the momentum, but managed to push out, probably with a little bit more of an arch in the body than I wanted, but that can still get you up. So that arch in the body, I've got grass on my bed, is going to help you up, like the crow handstand helped you up. Let's have a good rest, then we'll try a straight body as best I can. Okay, so for the finale, I'm going to have my hands here, which is going to allow me to come down a little bit mound on the grass there. So I'm picking my hand placement because I want to have good external rotation. I want to need the arms coming in. I'm going to try and keep the body as straight as possible. So there, externally rotate, arms into the side. Again, arching, but we got up. So some fun there to be had, and you can just play around with the progressions that you have. I'd highly recommend though you just play around on the grass, play around with the bent arm, rebalancing, crow to handstand, and that type of thing if you're on the newer level in terms of this type of thing. Then if you're a bit more advanced, make it purposely harder, a bit more controlled. But it's hard to make this really clean in terms of sets and reps and programming point of view. This is a bit more play, but you can definitely work out the level you're at and try and hit it in reps and sets at a slightly easier variation and use this play work to explore some new options. Let me know if you have any questions down in the comments below. Reach out if you're interested in coaching. I have my app and my online coaching. And I'll speak to you guys in the next one.